Well, what do you know? It's Monday again. It always happens. I think yesterday was Friday. But it is Monday, and joining us this first hour tonight is the remarkable Gerald Celente, who is, in my view, a real journalist. He considers himself a trends forecaster and an analyst, but more than that, he is a man who really presents solid, viable, and critically important data to all of us so we can better factor in what we perceive around the world and try to understand what's going on. Are you there, Gerald?
I'm here, Jeff. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for being here. We can start with Fukushima. We can start with Libya. We can start with the horrors in Congress. Where do you want to go? I've got a lot of stuff on all of it, as you do, and the people are waiting to hear, so let's tell them.
Well, let's start with gold.
Very good.
Gold today just hit, as we're speaking during the trading session, $1,910.
Yeah.
And I began trading gold in 1978. And my first buy of gold was at $187.50 an ounce.
I love it.
And in those days, by the way, gold used to move 15 cents, 25 cents. A big move was $1 a day.
You bet. Yep.
And now, of course, it's moving $45, $47. And very important, when gold really took its big rise, it began to happen during the summer. And people should realize that most people in the summer are on a vacation state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you're a European, you have the whole month off. It's not like in the United States, after you work for a company for 20 years, they give you 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You don't take it all at once. It doesn't work like that. So what's going on now is we're having this global meltdown, and it's a meltdown of the financial markets at a time when most people aren't even aware of it. And we're having this big run-up in gold when most people aren't tuned in. So we're looking at late September and October for a real shock to hit, because that's what happens when you start looking at the last quarter. Now you're going into the final quarter of the year, and you're looking at your receipts and your accounts and your receivables, what went out, what went in, and you're seeing how bad it really is. And that's when panic starts to happen. And that's why you see most of the stock market crashes happen in October. So what's going on now with this gold market, there's only, back when in the old days, when gold made its run up to 800, and I believe it closed at $50 an ounce. And I remember that day very well because I bought at the top $875 during the trading day.
Yeah. What
happens is that now we're going into a cycle whereby the swings are going to be very wide, but also when it was happening back then, it was happening because of inflation. And also Jimmy Carter's cabinet, he was firing people, week after week. This is a very different story right now. This is not inflation-driven. It's cheap money-driven. There's a big difference. Remember they used to tell you about, during the Weimar Republic that people used to buy a loaf of bread with a wheelbarrow of money?
Sure.
Because it wasn't worth the paper it wasn't printed on.
Right.
That's what we're looking at now. So we don't have wheelbarrows now. We have Bernanke barrows. And you're going to have to tie down your money with bungee cords, because that's what you're going to need to go buy a loaf of bread. And it's happening worldwide. It's not only the United States, it's that European Monetary Union, that central bank that bailed out all the other banks that made bad bets throughout Europe. And they're printing money. The whole world is hip to this. Back then, back in the late 1970s, early 80s, it wasn't the Germans, it wasn't the Japanese, It wasn't the Soviet Union. It wasn't the red communist Chinese that were buying gold. It was only the Americans. Now you have the world is buying gold because the smart people know it's nothing more than a big Ponzi scheme.
Sure.
So this is the big news.
Well, I remember when the Chinese turned their people loose on the gold market 4 or 5 years ago now, I guess. They knew. And there's a lot of gold in China that nobody talks about. If this gold rush continues, and it will, where do you see it beginning to slow down? Can they artificially pull the price down or have the horses run from the barn?
They can artificially pull the price down. There's no question about it. They could do anything that they want to do. And let's not forget what they did back in 1933.
No.
What was it, the Federal Emergency Banking Act?
Sure.
Where they confiscated the people's gold.
Everything but collectible coins they took. And actually they took a lot of those, too. People had to hide them pretty much. Now there's talk if they do confiscate it, it'll just be bullion, the numismatics will be left alone. I don't think so. No. Remember, this is fascism, what's going on here. And if anybody has a doubt about that, remember the thing we used to have called the Constitution that's been abrogated with the Patriot Act and other executive and the creation
orders.
of EOs and the creation of almost 300 czars, utterly unconstitutional. The Federal Reserve is completely unconstitutional, and we do know now that the Federal Reserve gave away trillions of our money to its crony buddies in Europe, to the fat cats here. I can't even begin in my mind, Gerald, to wrap it around the amount of theft that has taken place here, in full view of essentially the world. In full view of the world, and that 1.2 trillion that you were just talking about that they gave to their cronies, the banks such as the Goldman Sachs gang, sure,
and the Merrill Lynch mob, and the J.P. Morgan Chase, who said they never needed the money, but took 40-something billion worth. And one after another, what was it, Societe Generale, Barclays Bandits, one bank after another. Hey, Jeff, you need a couple of $1 billion. You need $40 billion. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll loan you $40 billion, and all you have to do is pay me 1% interest. And then you can loan it out to anybody you want at all the interest rates you want to loan it out at. You think you can make some money on that? So this is what they're doing. And as you pointed out, this is happening. Pick up today's New York Times. You know, they call themselves the paper of record, which I affectionately call the toilet paper of record.
Amen, brother.
And then you pick up the Wall Street Journal. Pick up the Financial Times. You won't see that story anywhere.
Nope.
It was reported on Sunday. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the middle of August on a Sunday, everybody was tuned into that story. They couldn't wait to read it. So what they're doing is they're hiding the truth from the people. So if you were to ask me what the biggest story of today is, no, it's not Libya, because that's just business as usual. It's the NATO Murder Incorporated and the oil companies that they represent doing what they do whenever they want to do it.
And who owns the fat cat? Right. Who owns the fattest oil company of all? BP? The City of London Banksters. And
who is the first companies to move in? They're already talking about the Italians, the French, the British, and they get most of the oil, the sweet crude from Libya.
Of course.
And if you heard me say before, look at what happened at the same time. What was going on in Yemen, the Ivory Coast, Sudan, Somalia. Hey, you didn't hear about all this Obama outrage and humanitarian missions over there, did you? Couldn't have been for the oil. No, it's for the sand. That was it. Yeah, they wanted to protect the sand.
Got to do it. Got to do it. You're all, folks out there, you're all watching the most horrifying rape of an economy, a country, a way of life that may have ever happened in this short a period of time, barring a bloody military overthrow, that I've ever heard of in history. It is truly, it's just incredible to watch. Back in just a minute with Gerald Celente. Okay, back with Gerald Celente, talking about gold and the economy. Folks, let me tell you something, and I've said this before, and we've talked about it with Gerald in the past, but you better prepare. You better prepare for this winter, because as he is saying, after the summer ends, the reality check begins. And when the businesses see that they are in deep trouble or dead, they are going to begin to panic. There will be panic. You will not be able to get the goods you need to survive, in some cases, especially if you're on a marginal budget. The goods will not be produced by companies that will go out of business. Remember, the biggest retail season of the year is the holiday season. A lot of businesses didn't make it last holiday season, and a lot more are not going to make it this holiday season. Gerald, we are literally facing a collapse of unprecedented proportions here, and the worst hasn't occurred yet. That's the part that people don't get.
You're right. They don't get it, and they don't want to believe it. We are now in the early stages of the first great war of the 21st century. And people are going to wait until the official word, just like you had to wait to the official word that we were in recession back in 2007.
Right. Wait for that trusted government to tell us officially.
Oh yeah, because, they're smarter than everyone. They know everything.
Yeah, just ask them.
Yeah. And so what we're looking at, when you just start adding it up, first of all, they're re-engineering history. What happened in the Middle East was not a pro-democracy.
Not at all. No chance. And let me say one thing, please, if I might. I don't mean to interrupt.
No.
I've been in this business of professional, honorable journalism for 25 years. I have never seen anything more despicable than the whores and the prostitutes at CNN and some of the other alleged news services that I have been able to stomach going to look at. The lies, the spin, the despicable characterizations of what is not going on are amazing. These people are writing science fiction. The tragedy is NATO has been killing people non-stop since the beginning of its entry into the so-called Libyan war for democracy. Such bull I have never seen. These are hired mercenary killers, many of them Al-Qaeda killers who have killed American boys and girls in Iraq. They're now fighting as mercenaries in Libya. There are people from Qatar, people from Egypt, scum of the earth, mercenaries, killing. They are dying by the... God only knows how many hundreds in Libya right now. I could play a 2-minute clip, which I may hear, which may bring some light after the break to what's going on there. There is a lid on this in terms of information coming out of Libya that is honest, and there is a propaganda war being fought like I have never seen. We knew about Iraq, Gerald. We were primed. They gave us all the crap about weapons of mass destruction. There's nothing. They didn't even pretend to do that with Libya. They couldn't get away with it, first of all. They're just going in there and killing people. And where is the world? Where is Russia? Where is China, our alleged enemies? Why aren't they saying, no more, stop it, or we're coming in? Not a word from anybody. This is a grim indicator.
The only thing I disagree with you with is that they're not prostitutes. They're prostitutes.
Well said.
And NBC and CBS and NPR and PBS and ABC, those are houses of prostitution.
Yeah.
And all they do is they service their masters.
Yep.
And look what Obama, look where he went yesterday. As you watch that, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. That whole convoy of his, like 20 cars or something. Yeah. Where did he go for dinner? Yet last night. Look it up. Comcast. The owner of Comcast. Who does Comcast own? NBC. So
all in the family, folks.
That's right. So it's the house of prostitution.
Yeah.
And so what they did, and you remember the Iraq War, about how the New York Times and all of these other papers and outlets told us about that yellow cake and them aluminum tubes.
Yeah.
Remember all that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is what they do. And what they're doing now is, as you pointed out, they're not talking about the horrors of this war and how many innocent people are being killed. So this is just business as usual. That's why I'm saying there's really nothing new here. But what we're looking at when you put all the pieces together, Yemen, Bahrain, Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, Syria, riots in UK, Greece, Portugal, Spain.
Mm-hmm.
You go one country after another. So here's what they do. So now we have, first they call it the Arab Spring. Son of a gun. Isn't December the winter? Didn't it begin in Tunisia during December of 2010? How did it get? Wasn't the Arab uprising in Egypt in February?
So ad agency.
How did that get to a spring?
Yeah.
You know, what am I, stupid? You know, so they keep doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So now they say it's a pro-democracy movement. And now I left one out. Israel. 300,000 people taking to the streets.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do, Jeff, is they keep changing the story. First it becomes a pro-democracy movement.
Yeah.
When it goes over to Greece, you know who them Greeks are? Them are anarchists, I tell you. And then when you see those riots over in the UK, this is criminal violent behavior, says the little chicken hawk weenie Cameron. And then when it happens over in Israel, you hardly even get a report on it. But when you read Haaretz and you read the Jerusalem Post, it's the same reason why it's happening everywhere in the world. And that is a bunch of money junkies with softer names like oligarchs who own everything like they do in the United States. As I mentioned, NBC, CBS, ABC, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in retail, whether it's in, you name the industry, whether a few money junkies own it all. And you've heard my saying, when the money stops flowing down to the man on the street, the blood starts flowing in the streets.
Yeah.
So now what you have in Israel, the people are educated. They know the deal. The people are educated in Egypt. They know the deal. What you have are people living in Egypt, for example, depending on whose data you look at, that average between $2 and $10 a day. Yes, I know things are cheap over there, but $2 and $10 a day doesn't buy you anything any place on the planet, particularly when food prices and fuel prices are skyrocketing.
Right.
And they know all the money's at the top of the pyramid. So you have the oligarchs, the monopoly holders, the robber barons, as they used to call them in the old days, controlling everything, and nothing going down to the people. And this is going on worldwide. And you talked about the United States with the Federal Reserve pumping in $1.2 trillion in backdoor loans to their buddies. In the meanwhile, if you need money, hey, Jeff, tough luck. If you need money and you're losing your home, go to hell. We got to give the money to J.P. Morgan Chase. We got to give it to the Goldman Sachs gang, the Merrill Lynch mob, the Barclay bandits, and the Credit Suisse swindlers.
You couldn't say it any better or more true. And on that note, let's take our short break here, and we'll come right back. Okay, and we're back with Gerald. Part of the game, of course, in addition to slaughtering people, and NATO, read NATO to be the United States, Britain, and France, essentially, directed, of course, by the City of London bankers. NATO is, in fact, the military arm of the City of London banksters. They also own their own private country, or control it, That's called Israel, with the world's third or fourth largest thermonuclear weapons stockpile. And they've used those weapons to blackmail governments for decades. That's who we are up against. Now, the poor people of Libya, who were very happy in the most westernized nation left in the Arab world after the annihilation of Iraq, were perplexed, shocked, and stunned in the beginning. They had no idea what this alleged uprising was. Then they figured it out. Mercenaries. Boots on the ground now from the UK, from the US, special forces from France, killing, being killed in some cases. The situation remains confused. We don't know exactly what's going on. It is clearly only a matter of time. Either Tripoli surrenders or it will be destroyed. And that is exactly the ultimatum, apparently, that NATO gave to the Gaddafi government. Either let the rebels in, or we will burn the city to the ground. That's the word we're getting. Now, let me just play a minute and a half of a woman named Leonore, who has been reporting from Europe with direct ties to Tripoli, and it's interesting to hear her take on things. Some of the journalists over there are reporting that the situation is completely up in the air. They don't know what's going on because they're hiding in a hotel. But here's just a quick soundbite from Leonore. She's done a very good job.
A lot of blood and destruction. Maybe you don't want to talk about that side of it, but please tell us anything you can about what is going on in Libya.
Yes, I can tell you that yesterday, I know that yesterday all the Libyan people received an SMS saying that the Libyan government is give up and no Libyan government. So the people were waiting for a big game by television, by newspapers, international media, but they could never imagine this. So they were a little bit confused, and something happened because of this. Anyway, I am happy to know that the people slowly understand it was also a part of the game. But also, I have some news from Tripoli too, that somebody from Tripoli, from Libya, say that there was a big game yesterday, a very big game, and that NATO was talking to the Libyan government and said they were going to burn the city while they were sending the missiles to the Tripoli and also bombing the city. They said we are going to burn the city if we cannot put the rebels inside the city. Okay? So that's why Gaddafi talked by the radio or by the I don't know what and said, I will not let the rebels burn Tripoli. So they said, okay, bring these people. And the NATO bring by helicopters to Tajura some rebels. And these rebels, that's why yesterday they were saying, how is it possible that the rebels arrive into Tripoli and nobody say anything, and they go inside the city, the government don't say anything, and no army. Okay, that is because they were waiting for them, and nobody at the beginning say anything to stop the bombing.
Okay, just an idea. So apparently, if the report is correct, NATO gave an ultimatum out of obvious frustration. They cannot subdue these people. We're going to burn the city to the ground, destroy it, unless you let the resistance in. So according to Leonore, the Libyan government allowed the rebels to come in. I assume this is the old Muhammad Ali rope-a-dope. They're going to try and let them come in, surround them, and take care of them. I don't know what's going to happen. It's very difficult to get the truth. But I'm telling you, folks, if you look at CNN or consult any of the other prostitute horror institutions, you're not going to get anything close to reality. That's a fact. So try to keep that in mind as we watch the continual annihilation and slaughter of the Libyan people by American, British, and French military units, otherwise known as NATO. And when Muammar Gaddafi speaks, he still has incredible support there. When Barack Obama speaks and announces that Libya has fallen, not only is the guy a moron, but he has a very low, the polls are in the 20s, let's put it that way. Go ahead, Gerald.
Well, first of all, with NATO, let's remember, you and I are old enough to remember why NATO was created. And it was created to protect Europe from
the Soviet Union, allegedly.
Exactly. Who Michelle Bachmann said is our greatest threat. Did you hear that one?
No, come on, you're kidding me.
I can't verify it, but I believe it to be very true.
Well, it sounds like Bachmann.
No, it does, right?
Yep.
China and the Soviet Union. So now, of course, the Soviet Union isn't there anymore, and NATO still is. And NATO, of course, as we know, they destroyed Serbia, and now they're moving around into other areas such as Libya. So that on that note, the other issue I find in following the events that are going on in Libya, the most reliable source, and again, it all ties together, who would have thought of this, is Russia Today.
RT? Yep.
Yeah.
Good. Yep.
And I watch their news, and it's a total different, they have real reporters there. Mm-hmm. They're showing a whole nother side, they're showing both sides of the story, as opposed to the prostitutes.
Well, Al Jazeera, forget Al Jazeera, forget all of them. You're right, RT is doing the best. Yeah.
There's a great clip, by the way. I was on China Today just before the Libyan war started with the Al Jazeera bureau chief from Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. And we have a link in our Spring Trends Journal. And I got this guy. He went off the charts at the end. He was screaming as they were closing out the show. People should know that Al Jazeera is owned by the Qatar government.
Yep.
And that Muammar Gaddafi and the Emir of Qatar don't get along very well.
Nope.
And so Al Jazeera is the prostitute for the U.S. press on the issue of Libya. But this guy, I have to tell you, it was a riot. He kept going on and on about the Arab League, and the Arab League wants to do this. I said, listen, what Arab League? I said, try the Arab Little League. And I said, and he kept telling us, this is what we have to do. And I said, let me make something really straight to you. Don't you include me in the we. I said, you talk really tough. Why don't you in the Arab League pack up your gear, take your wife and your kids, grab a gun, and go fight the war? It's not the United States battle. Well, when I said this to him, Jeff, this guy went off the charts, man.
Good for you.
He couldn't hold it together because these white shoe boys, these Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Eton suck-ups,
yep.
When they face, the real facts from a guy that's not going to take their crap because I don't suck up to anybody, they fall apart.
I love
and this guy, you could look on you have the Spring Trends Journal, there's the link there.
Yeah, good.
And so anyway, this guy, so when you're getting it from Al Jazeera, you're getting it from the BBC.
You're getting it all right, folks.
You're getting it. So that's what's going on here. So when you're talking about NATO, all this is it's more of the oil companies, sending people to die, whether it was World War I, fighting for Standard Oil.
Damn true. All about resources and looting.
That's all it is. You've heard my line before. Would we have invaded Iraq if their major export was broccoli? Remember how they told us that the oil exports were going to pay for the war?
Sure. Fat chance. By the way, Iraq has more oil than Saudi Arabia. That was a well-kept secret. I saw the story before this Operation Desert Shield was ever launched, and I knew it. It was a lie. There was so much oil there, it's ridiculous. There's a lot of oil in Iran, too. Not as much as in Iraq, but it was all about the oil, not broccoli.
Iraq is sitting on the world's second largest oil reserve.
Yeah. You know who has, and these are valid projections, up to 5 trillion barrels of recoverable oil reserves in various states of grade, grade A like, that Venezuela, up to $5 trillion. That's
wow.
the projection. This takes everybody else out of the game. The Saudis have, what, $600 billion or something. We're talking about oil that is beyond measure in Venezuela and their offshore oil reserves. So look for Venezuela to be targeted next.
Well, that's not going to happen, boy. They're not going to let it happen.
Let's hope not.
They may try to target them, but boy, they're going to be biting off more than they could chew with Venezuela.
Hope so. I certainly hope so.
And the other thing I want to say, Jeff, is that as you're seeing gold flirt with 1,900 an ounce, and you know our projection at the beginning of the year was 2,000,
sure.
And I get a kick now out of all these people jumping on the bandwagon and saying where gold is going to go. You know, the ones that didn't see it coming are now saying what's going to be next.
Sure.
But my major concern right now is that they may call for an economic martial law. And I've mentioned to you this, to audiences before, because what we're saying is to take protective measures now, as you well said, with food and supplies. Also, do you know where your money is? Because if it's with a bank, you don't know where it is. And that the shock that hit the markets last week was also coming out of Europe because the banks are running out of money. Figure it out. You have interest rates down near zero. They're not getting a lot of depositors because only imbeciles would give their money to a bank to hold that pays them no interest, then takes their money and loans it out at higher interests. So, for example, if you own a credit card and you're late on your payment, they charge you up to 30% and more. So only people that have, no self-confidence, that don't know what to do with their money and put it in a bank would leave it with them. So what we're saying is that we're going to see some major banking problems. They're going to blame gold speculators on the failures of the equity markets as gold prices run up. And we believe there's going to be a high probability of a bank holiday, which means you don't get your money out. So if you were to ask me where gold is going, I'm saying at a minimum 2,000 an ounce, and I only put that ceiling on it because they're capable of doing anything. And that is the world central banks getting together to put a peg on gold. And worse than that, to confiscate it. They've done it before. They'll do it again. They'll do anything that they want. So if they could poison your food, poison your air, poison your water, to get you addicted to a number of different drugs that are blowing your mind away, if they could take your children and your loved ones and use them for cannon fodder in wars started by sociopaths and psychopaths, you think they'll take your gold away from you? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to do just a little bit on Fukushima because this is very important. There was a story that I posted the other day. Someone near Toronto measured, after wiping off some solar cells, 20,000 counts per minute per square meter of radioactivity. 20,000 counts per minute. If you get over 100 counts per minute, you got a problem. You need to start thinking about doing something. All right, this is indicative of a jet stream that is north in the summer, traversing Canada, raining on Canada, and dropping radiation from Fukushima. There's one. Now, the other issue, if we go back to Japan itself and look at the amount of radioactivity that is being released at this wrecked plant, it's huge, absolutely huge. 10 trillion becquerels an hour are being released from the wrecked plant. A becquerel is a radioactive event. 10 trillion per hour. The Japanese government has now said that it'll be just fine to collect all the radioactive debris from broken houses, wreckage, you name it. It doesn't matter. Trees, they found trees radioactive. As long as they get it together and burn it, it's fine. No problem. Never mind that fire has no effect whatsoever on radioactivity. So the Japanese are going to be collecting and burning everything they can that's radioactive to send the fumes and the smoke and the radioactive particles where? Up in the air. And where will it go from there? It'll go from there to here. I sound like Dr. Seuss. The jet stream is moving south. In another 4 or 5 weeks, it'll be moving into the northwest and across the northern tier of states into New England, and then in another month after that, it'll be all over the country. The rain this winter will be radioactive. How radioactive? Depends on your luck. Folks, you better prepare, and you better have food inside, because there could be at any time a major panic. The Canadians have announced they're going to begin to test fish off the Pacific coast for radioactive contamination. You know what? They're going to find it. And that's going to impact the entire Pacific fisheries. So there's going to be, for you meat eaters out there, there's going to be a bit of a shortage. So as Gerald has warned us time and time again, and I've spent years doing this as well, you better buy food. I don't care if you go out and buy 20 cases of organic, vegan, baked beans. Put some food away. It'll last for years. Yeah, I know the inside of the can has a plastic BPS and then, or BSP, but don't worry about that. You got to eat, all right? Beans are cheap. Get yourself something that you can rely on to get you through a time of very, very. This is going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I just wanted to put that out there because the rain coming this winter is not going to be our friend, because the Japanese are burning everything they can, putting this crap up in the air, and it's coming here.
Well, the whole thing has been a cover-up from the start. And again, the prostitutes aren't covering it at all. You see every couple of weeks you see a story. Oh, they found the rice is contaminated. Oh, they found the beef is contaminated in Tokyo or wherever in Japan.
They've shipped it all over the country, and they ship some of it out of the country.
Of course. I mean, as you said, this thing isn't stopping, and they've been lying from the beginning. And it's one. And by the way, of all of the nationalities, of all of the countries in the world, the one that should have had no nuclear at all would have been Japan.
True.
I mean, after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I mean, come on.
Well, it's big business. Big governments are all corrupt. GE went in there, made deals with Toshiba and the other giants, and there's nuclear power. 55 nuclear power plants. I don't know how many total reactors you have. Now, it's beginning to move south. This is my point. Now, here's the kicker. I just got a story, and what normal background radioactivity is in our environment is not a problem. It's called background radiation. It's not a problem. Now, here's a quickie. This is like a minute and 30 seconds. This is from somebody, Gerald, in St. Louis. I just got the story, and I want you to listen to it. Now, he's going to work from normal background radioactivity. He's using a cloth. Again, he's wiped off glass and so forth to see what kind of precipitants are on there. So here we go. This is really, really interesting. All right. The warning is, stay out of the rain.
Actually, it's still staying high. Wow. So I expect this one to be really hot. 17 times background. 35 times background. 62 times background. 68 times background. Odds ring test so far. 86 times background. 100 times background. 120 times background. 140 times background. 150 times background. 175 times background.
Okay, it peaked out at 178 times background, and all the guy did was take a rag and wipe off some glass, outside glass, windshields, whatever. That's in St. Louis, ladies and gentlemen. And they've had rain there, and the jet stream has gone over Canada, and then some of the moisture has moved down south. This is not going to be good. Don't rely on your government to tell you anything. They won't. I'm covering this every day, have been from the beginning. I'll keep on it. But you folks have got to get serious about preparing. You don't want to be out in the rain. Your gardens, I'm sorry, if they're not covered, they're going to get rained on. And the cesium is going to go into the soil. And they're now saying cesium may last environmentally not 30, 35 years, but 180 to 360 years. All right? I think the point is clear. Prepare. Cover your gardens. And don't expect the government to do a damn thing to help you, because they don't care anything about your welfare. Nothing.
You know, in the book I wrote, Trends 2000, back in 1996, we had a chapter called Atomic Cafe, and we warned about just these very things. And what people don't realize is that month after month and year after year, there have been reports of these kind of dangers that were just ready to happen in nuclear power plants around the world.
14 near misses last year.
Yeah, and then for the longest time they've been out of the news. And of course, for good reason. The prostitutes don't want them in there. And what you mentioned, General Electric?
Yeah.
Gee, weren't they the company that owned NBC and CNBC?
And the CEO of General Electric, Mr. Jeffrey Immelt, just happens to be the director of Barack Obama's job programs.
And how much money did General Electric make last year? $14 billion in profit?
Something like that.
And paid nothing in taxes? That General Electric? Yeah, so the whole thing's a rigged game. And and what, again, you go back to the money junkies. A junkie has no concerns, no bounds, no boundaries.
No.
They just can't get enough of their junk. So they'll kill for it, you know, they'll cheat, they'll steal, as long as they keep getting their fix. And what you're looking at now is that the junkies want their fix. So if they get it through whatever means, war or destruction of the environment,
they don't care.
All in the guise of building the bottom line.
Psychopaths.
Psychopaths and sociopaths. They're called politicians.
Yep.
And that's who's running the show. So what we're saying to people is really consider preparing for the worst. I've never seen a summer like this one before in my life. And I've been forecasting trends now since 1980. I've never seen a summer like this.
No, the hammer's
one
coming.
Other little thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jeff, remember that S&P downgrade of America's creditworthiness?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how many people have forgotten that already?
What downgrade, they'd say? You ask 100 people on the street, I'd be surprised if one knew it. Yeah.
Hey, we were AAA before, and we're still a AAA country.
That's right.
And then you hear the prostitutes talking about Obama's new programs that he's putting together after he finishes his vacation up in Martha's Vineyard.
I can't wait.
Yeah, well, figure it out. If Larry Brilliant Summers, remember him, his chief economic advisor, and Christina Roma, his other economic advisors, and all these other chief economic advisors that were so brilliant and the best of the best couldn't come up with anything after spending trillions of dollars, what makes anybody think they're going to come up with something now? And then the other news is that when the stock market opened on Monday morning, it pumped ahead about 150 points on the good news that the Federal Reserve is thinking about more stimulus in the form of QE3.
Yep.
Could you imagine that? that they're going to print more digital money, not worth the paper it's not printed on, devalue the dollar even more. But hey, Jeff, it's good for stocks. And you know what? I think this is a buying opportunity. Have you ever heard any of these guys on Bloomberg, on CNBC, talking about a selling opportunity?
Nope. And remember, the brokers get it coming and going, folks. So keep that in mind, too. Thank you, Gerald, very much, as always.
Hey, thank you, Jeff.
Talk to you next month.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.